Geico presents sharing versus oversharing. Today, Bridget Griffin shared a video of her daily yoga routine, 2 self-help articles, and her new blog called Build Your Inner Bridge with Bridge. Girl, your sharing has turned into oversharing. No worries, Bridge. Geico has some info worth sharing with your 7 blog followers, like how you could save money on your car insurance, update your policy, and report a claim just by visiting geico.com. How's that for building your inner bridge? Bridge? Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Contending for Truth Radio. This is Conover U, our Monday morning show, and we have no Rodney. Rodney is in Florida this week and most likely out on the road and is not able to get called in. So maybe he'll pop in with us a little bit, but that's okay. We're going to have a great show. We got some great things to talk about, and we have got Matt Lynch, who is running for Congress in Ohio. Matt Lynch is going to be on with us in a little bit, and we're going to talk about Matt, talk about his life a little bit. We're going to talk a little bit about the things that he has done leading up towards his decision to run for Congress. We got a lot of people out there right now that are primarying against candidates and opponents and incumbents that are just not doing the job. And they're just not doing the job. And on Saturday Symposium, we often start out with very, very interesting little clip by Red Skelton where he goes through the Pledge of Allegiance. In fact, I want to take a couple of minutes. I want us to listen to that, and I want you to listen to the words of Red Skelton's Pledge of Allegiance, and I want you to especially to note when Red comes from the people to the leaders, not the leaders to the people. All right, Red, anytime. Come from behind the curtain.
I remember a teacher that I had. Now, I went through the 7th grade. I went to the 7th grade. I left home when I was 10 years old because I was hungry. This is true. I work in the summer and I go to school in the winter. But I had this one teacher. He was the principal of the Harrison School in Vincennes, Indiana. To me, this was the greatest teacher, a real sage of my time, anyhow. He had such wisdom. And we were all reciting the Pledge of Allegiance one day. And he walked over, this little old teacher, Mr. Laswell was his name. Mr. Laswell, he says, I've been listening to you boys and girls recite the Pledge of Allegiance all semester, and it seems as though it's becoming monotonous to you. If I may I recite it and try to explain to you the meaning of each word. I, me, an individual, a committee of one, pledge, dedicate all of my worldly goods to give without self-pity, allegiance, my love and my devotion to the flag, our standard, Old Glory, a symbol of freedom. Wherever she waves, there's respect, because your loyalty has given her a dignity that shouts freedom is everybody's job. United. That means that we have all come together. States, individual communities that have united into 48 great states. 48 individual communities with pride and dignity and purpose. All divided with imaginary boundaries, yet united to a common purpose, and that's love for country. and to the republic, a state in which sovereign power is invested in representatives chosen by the people to govern. And government is the people, and it's from the people to the leaders, not from the leaders to the people, for which it stands. One nation, meaning so blessed by God, indivisible, incapable of being divided, with liberty, which is freedom, the right of power to live one's own life without threats, fear, or some sort of retaliation, and justice, the principle or qualities of dealing fairly with others. For all, which means, boys and girls, it's as much your country as it is mine. And now, boys and girls, let me hear you recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Since I was a small boy, 2 states have been added to our country, and 2 words have been added to the Pledge of Allegiance: under God. Wouldn't it be a pity if someone said that is a prayer and that would be eliminated from schools too?
The Republic. We are a republic. From the people to the leaders, not the leaders to the people. And, we got Glenn Atkinson with us this morning. He is jumping in for Rodney real quick since we cannot find Rodney somewhere in the great state of Florida. And I'm going to pass it to you in a second, Glenn, because you and I and Dan Wilson and you and Dan and Gary on Saturday Symposium discuss those words every week. They are a foundation of the discussion that goes on every week on Saturday Symposium, which covers a plethora of issues and a plethora of items. But that is really always the basic foundation, and Red Skelton's beautiful Pledge of Allegiance. But, there's 2 different kinds of leaders, and this has been throughout history. You've got these 2 different kinds of leaders. And with the biblical illustration of slavery, and notice how I got out of the political correctness of that by calling it a biblical illustration, but it is. It's an illustration that God uses for sin. He uses the slavery in Egypt, the release of the slavery in Egypt through a Savior, brought into a covenant and taken into the land of Canaan through the Red Sea and through the Jordan River, through the water. And he goes on in the New Testament to talk about slavery and freedom from sin, slavery to sin, freedom from sin, and that Christ frees us from sin. He's the Savior. And when we take that illustration of what a slave is and what a master is, when you run for elected office, you are running to be a bond servant. The word bond servant is used in the book of Philippians, chapter 1, I believe, where it says, even Christ did not consider equality with God something to be grasped, but he made himself a servant. And that's a bond servant or a bond slave. When you run for office, any elected office, it does not matter what it is, whether it is the agricultural commissioner of Texas, like our great Sid Miller, whether it be the governor, whether it be a commissioner or a city council or a school board, when you have ran for elected office and you have had people vote for you in a republic, you have volunteered to be a slave. That's what you've done. You've volunteered to be a public servant, not a master. Nobody hired you to be a master. Nobody hired you to say, this is the way I think it should be, so I'm going to work real hard to get it there. No, you're there to serve the will of the people. You're there to make sure the people are safe. You are there to make sure that the pieces of your municipality that need to run correctly for the people to be living happily. You're in charge of making sure that your little city is run right. If you're on the city council or you're the mayor or whatever position you're in, you're there for a purpose, and that is to be a slave. I'm a firm believer, Glenn, that if we started walking into every city council meeting and every school board meeting, and those are two very important meetings that when people show up in bulk, it makes a big difference. I just envision where our city council and our school board both, every week, have to hear somebody look at them, point a finger at them, and say, you need to remember, you are the slaves, we are the masters. It is not the other way around. And Glenn, I can't help but to think that if we started doing that in every single school board meeting, in every single city council meeting, it would send reverberations up through the state and the national level. What do you think?
Well, you're exactly right. And to be effective in what we're trying to accomplish here, it has to start from the grassroots. It's never, ever worked with the leaders to the people. It never has, and it never will, because as you say, they're a slave. They're supposed to be a slave to us. And that term of being a slave it's our voice that actually is to motivate them to do the right thing. So it's from we the people to the leaders, not the other way around. Because if we have it the other way around, we get tyranny, we get their control, we get them whether they're greedy, they want everything, they want to be in control of everything and do everything their way, and they forget about us, the people, because they're in there for so long or whatever have you, that they want to just do what they want to do for their own personal agendas, and it never ever worked, it never ever has, and never ever will. And it's good to see that people are waking up to that.
Well, exactly. And the reverberations are running everywhere. I've been saying for 3 years now that at some point there's going to be a tipping point, and we don't know where it's going to be, and won't know where it's going to be until we really look back. History, it will tell us where the tipping point was. But where there is a tipping point of where the people finally rise up and say they've had enough. Now, we've had some contributions to this tipping point. I'm a firm believer that parents all over the country fully confused right now at math homework. And believe me, it is confusing. Is pushing the tipping point and going, wait a minute. There's something wrong here. Something stinks. I'm a firm believer that over the last 2 years specifically, that people have gotten those letters, Glenn, that tell them that they really weren't happy with their health insurance.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that would have liked to have just kept their health insurance, and it wasn't. And they've insured some people. Yeah, they've insured some people, but they've upset the whole apple cart in order to do it and cost us trillions. It's insane. If they had just spent the money they spent on the people that didn't have any health insurance, they could have bought a health insurance for the next 40 years. It is absolutely insane what they've done. We, Glenn, you and I, we do this because we're in a fight because we believe in something. And you and I have had this conversation before about the 100 people in the 100 houses, and probably 80% of them would agree with me if we talked about just basic foundational issues. But they're not. They haven't been quite paying attention, but I think they're starting to, Glenn. I think they're really starting to wake up. Now, we know, because of Iowa caucus polling research, that a good chunk of Donald Trump's support is coming from three areas. Number one, it's people that normally don't pay attention to the primary until about right now. Generally in the primary season, about right now is where people start really paying attention. After the holidays, getting close to the actual primaries, all the rest of this stuff that's been going on that you and I have been living, Glenn, most people, most of the time, even that are politically, generally, they vote and pay attention to current events, aren't really paying attention up until right now. They have been. 3 times as many people have been. They've been paying attention to the primary like they pay attention to the general election. And he has also, though, awoken a bunch of Republicans, and probably some of them the same, that have not voted in 3 to 4 election cycles because they said all we ever get is the same. Doesn't matter if I vote. I'm not going to all this trouble again. I'm not getting out there and supporting my candidate. I'm not sending him money. I'm not doing all this. I haven't done it for 3 or 4 cycles. They've been disgusted with what's going on in Congress, everything. Donald Trump has woke up a bunch of those people, and I don't think no matter what happens to Donald Trump from here on out, I think those people are ready to help push a change. And then he has also woke up a conversation that Dan and I have had many times, what we like to call JFK Democrats, or commonly known as Reagan Republicans, or Reagan Democrats. But there is a whole section of voters, a whole conglomeration, a huge group of voters in the Democratic Party who don't realize, they have not got the memo yet that it's not Grandma's Democratic Party anymore. It is, in fact, it's in a total direction, the opposite of where they ever wanted to go. If anything, they wanted to see the Democratic Party go a little bit more conservative than it was on some things, not further left. And Reagan brought them out. Reagan was beautiful at bringing out the common sense Democrats. They believe what they believe. Their passions are their passions, but they're not fruitcakes. They are Americans, patriots. They love this country. They fly their flags. Many of them own their guns, and they are living the American dream. And Glenn, as we march forward, you and I were watching the presidential election. We're watching a bunch of local elections. I'm really seeing the tide turn in a totally different direction. I saw last year after the last election, a little early election, of course, but I saw the grassroots on the Republican side get up the next day and continue working. And oftentimes in the past, once the election's over, the Republicans sit down and bask for a few weeks, a couple of months, and relax. The grassroots didn't stop this last time. They kept going. And I just think we have some momentum. And, Glenn, I think it is going to show in 2016. And here I am, in the fourth day of 2016. And I'm going to predict that it's going to be an incredible year for Republicans. I think on many levels, the last couple of elections have garnered us more governors, more Congress, more senators, but on the local level, it has garnered us a whole lot. And Glenn, I think we're in for a very good year. It's feeling very good. What do you think?
Well, I think you're exactly right, and on everything you hit a bullseye there on so many levels. You mentioned Donald Trump and you mentioned the grassroots. and you mentioned Reagan and John F. Kennedy, and you know, when you look at everything that's going on right now, what Donald Trump is doing, he's basically copying some of what Reagan has did in his campaign, and he got the people to wake up and get involved, and he did that in the grassroots. He did that. You know, he even had. He had the GOP feared. And that's the key word I think is right here is Donald Trump is tapping into the word fear that everyone has. And everyone can say they don't or they do or whatever, but to whatever level, there's a major fear going on here, whether it would be ISIS or whether it be because of what Obama's done and Hillary Clinton and what, you know, her involvement. All this stuff is, we're seeing it here, right here in America, the fear. And Donald Trump is he's a genius when it comes to marketing what he's trying to do. And he's not just doing it just because people are feared. He's doing it because he knows they're feared and he has an answer for it. And therefore, you know, you're seeing a Donald Trump where he's so much like Reagan, but you know what? In a situation we are now as opposed to back in in Jimmy Carter days from 76 to 80, and Reagan doing his spiel and getting the people to wake up in that. I think we're seeing 4 times the amount of that now. And I think we're going to see this as being history rewritten, and on so many levels, you know, because people are getting involved even more in the grassroots. All those levels, all those different areas you pointed out are you're brilliant when you bring it up the way you did, because that's exactly what we're tapped into here, and it all pivots around a lot of fear. And what Donald Trump is doing is he's doing 2 things. He's showing that he cares, and he has a history of building something, you know, something big, something great. And even though he has his faults, people are saying, okay, you know what, we all do. They're starting to see the realities, even in the imperfections of him, even in everything we have that we have now. It needs to change, and he's saying he's going to make this America great again. And you know, and it's genius because it's great again. You know, America has always been the great leader of all countries, and you know, it's because of the people working together that made it that way. That cause and effect. And now we have a situation where, for the last many years, people have not been working together. People have been working together as leaders to control us. But it's the people that are waking up that haven't even been voting. You know, we got people that are in their 30s and 40s that have never even voted. It's incredible. Or people since Reagan or Bush, the first Bush, you know, Father Bush, they've not voted since then even. You know, I've talked to many people. I'm from Canada, and you know, so I've seen it from that perspective. And now that I've been here for the last, you know, over 9 years, I'm seeing more and more people, just in the last 2 years, if you will, just in the last 2 years, getting more involved. I'm involved because of a situation I'm in, because I could have ran back and just said heck with this, and no, you know, anytime there's a problem, the first thing I think of is what can we do for the solution. And I'm not afraid to say that, you know, no matter what happens with this election, and I'm not just talking about the primary, the nominee to go up against Hillary, if you will. I'm talking about the election this November. Whoever wins that, Donald Trump had 99.9% to do with it in so many levels. And when I say that much, if not 100% to do with it, whether it's him or not, because he is the one, is like you've said it many times, and you do it so eloquently. And you can maybe get into that too. He is the CEO of this whole thing, and I'm talking the Democratic side too. I'm not even talking about just he's controlling the whole thing, because he is listening to the people. He has been the people, and has seen where the corruption is, and he is being a major part of this, and he's kicking the dirt. He's kicking the dirt around. He's making everything up again. Not everyone is sitting there waiting for something to happen. No, they're getting involved now, and it's because he has been the one that's been the CEO to all this. And, you know, I think, you know, that how you said that before, and how you explain that to people of how he's the CEO, that is exactly why we're getting excited about this, because whether it be a Ted Cruz or anyone out there that could be the president, and anyone is better than what we got right now. So therefore, he's bringing everybody's game up, if you will. He's saying, okay, if you're in it, you better be in it to win it, because I am. And therefore, everybody sees that, and they're saying, oh, you know what? Whoa, what do we got here? This is since June 16th. They're going, whoa, okay, in the July, August, September. All these months, people are saying who's going to be out. He's going to be gone. Nah, he's not serious. Folks, it's January. He's leading in 99% of the polls, and largely in most. So therefore, if that's not serious, then there's something wrong with whoever's thinking is not serious. Because the GOP, the Republicans, are after him. You know, they want him out. There's even death threats. You don't have that much attention unless you're doing something right. And therefore, you know, these masses that have created this problem right now are turning the tide now that we, the people, are being the masses, because we're the speaker. We're the ones that's going to speak up, and we need people to get out there and vote from the communities, from the grassroots up. So him on so many levels, Donald Trump has made this. It's for we the people. He's done this for we the people, and he could have just said, "Forget it, and I don't want anything to do with this," because he's a billionaire. He's not a millionaire. He's a billionaire. He's got family things he could tend to, but he's doing this for this country, and he's doing it for the GOP party, and he's trying to bring both parties together, and as much as he can. And I think he's doing it like a Reagan. And you know what? I think he's gonna win. I really do believe he's gonna win. And the thing is, the bottom line is, we are going to win. No matter who gets in there, we, the people, are going to win. So with that, I think you've hit the nail right on the head there, Scott, with everything you just said.
And I couldn't agree with you anymore. One thing for sure is he's even impacted the Democratic Party in what he's done. They, generally when both parties are primarying, everybody kind of leaves each other alone on the other side. They're fighting each other out. It's a little bit different when one person's doesn't have a primary running like last time. They all kind of beat up on Obama some. But the Democratic primary, because of the way it is, and the chance that Hillary Clinton is going to be their nominee, has created a situation where, Donald Trump's got them on the defensive over there too. He's got the establishment on the defensive. He's got the media on the defensive. He's got the Democrats on the defensive. Like I say, and we've got our guest in the queue, so I'm going to bring him in here in a couple of minutes. But I want to refer back to our guests, what you were referring to. And I want you to lay down, listeners, just lay down what you think of Donald Trump as a presidential hopeful. Just lay that down for a second. Set it on the side. I want you to look just at Donald Trump as the CEO of the Republican primary season and what he has done. Number one, he has increased incredibly the participation in the primary season by the voters. It's incredible, the numbers of people that have been participating that generally don't participate until about right now. But he has changed the pattern of the primary season. And the pattern was always this. You had an establishment candidate. He came in with whatever he had. Mitt Romney came in really strong. John McCain didn't come in so strong. But come in, and then you have this fight between all the conservatives. And one has his 2 weeks of fame, and the next one has her 2 weeks of fame, and you go on. You get to the end, and they beat each other all up. And then the establishment candidate, of course, has the support of the establishment, so they take and pick up the pieces that are left and run. And that's how we end up with a Mitt Romney. That's how we ended up with a John McCain. That's how we ended up with a Bob Dole. That's how we end up with these candidates that then get into the general election, and there's really no difference between both sides when it comes down to some issues. And Donald Trump has changed that pattern. And what happened this time was when Donald Trump entered the race, Jeb Bush dropped in the polls to the sediment in the bottom of the glass and has stayed there the entire primary. He has no juice, nothing. He spent $31 million on advertising, and he's sitting at 3-4%. Donald Trump spent $250,000 in advertising. I'm going to tell you, every single candidate who is running, Ted Cruz, Fiorina, even Jeb Bush, have benefited from the increased audience of the Republican primary this season, let alone, and we could talk about this, of course, Glenn, for hours. We want to bring in Matt Lynch, but there's so many aspects to this. His knocking down the political correctness, his paving the way, and as we've said for a long time, we've known that Ted Cruz is very fond of Donald Trump, and Donald Trump is very fond of Ted Cruz, and they've met together many, many times. But we've got, Glenn, we've got Matt Lynch. And Matt is running for the 14th District in Ohio, the 14th Congressional District. And, Glenn, you know Melissa Bohannon. Melissa Bohannon is one of my closest friends. And when I found out that Melissa Bohannon was going to be supporting and helping with social media for Matt Lynch's campaign, Matt, when I found that out, I immediately knew a lot of things about you. I knew I knew you had some incredible character because I know what kind of a person Melissa gets involved with. And so I want to welcome you to Conover U. We've got Rodney is lost somewhere in Florida right now and can't get called in. So we've got Glenn Atkinson, one of our hosts from our Saturday show, and he's going to be joining us. So say hi, both of you.
I'm glad to join both Scott, you, and Glenn, and Melissa, who I'm sure is listening and has just been a tremendous asset to our campaign. Frankly, I just barely had been on Facebook, and she turned me into a Twitter guy. So that's all good.
That's Melissa. I know exactly how lucky you are to have her. Melissa and I have worked on many projects together.
Melissa, much like yourselves and like me and like so many others who really have joined officially, you might say, the conservative movement just in the last dozen years or so. We all come at this battle from a place of philosophy and principle, right? We believe in certain things: limited government life. We believe in the value of the Constitution. We believe in the exceptionalism of the United States of America. So these are our bedrock principles that motivate us to the fight. And that is so unlike the establishment Republican, which is the problem in the Republican Party. The establishment Republican is often just a person trying to advance in the political realm, perhaps for power, perhaps for money, perhaps for prestige, but rarely for principle. And as a result, we get the kind of leadership that we have in a Paul Ryan or over in the Senate. We get the wrong kind of people that really aren't committed to these principles. And then we wonder why they collapse in the face of any opposition from the Democrats. Because the Democrats, they believe in this stuff, a lot of them, and they fight for it. But our leadership, not so much.
So very, very true.
And I'm glad to hear you.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I'm glad to hear you to talk about Donald Trump in such glowing terms. I too believe that Donald Trump is performing just an incredibly important service, not just the Republican Party, but to the American people, because he is bringing to the Republican Party a kind of approach that says, hey, I'm not going to just go along to get along. I'm gonna do it my way, and in doing it his way, he's pushing a lot of folks aside that are part of the establishment. And I actually believe, I've been saying this a lot recently. Again, we believe in principle, right? And there are some conservatives that challenge any support for Donald Trump on the basis that, well, he's flip-flopped on different issues. But the principles that we hold so dear, the reason that we're not advancing those principles in our government is because the leadership of our own party won't fight for those principles. So the only way we're going to advance those principles is if we clear out that leadership. And so the number one question to ask of a presidential candidate, to my mind, is, are you going to be in a position, do you have the backbone, do you have the ability to sweep aside the Karl Rove, brand of leadership, the Jeb Bushes, the Paul Ryans, and reestablish conservative leadership in the Republican Party. Because if you can't do that, nothing else that you stand for really matters. And I believe absolutely that Donald Trump and Ted Cruz, they're able to do that.
You know what? I agree 100%. And being close to a few people in both campaigns, they have had numerous meetings together. They very much admire each other. And I'll tell you what I'd really like to see. And Donald Trump has never been my pick for president. Melissa and Teresa and I got in on the last 6 weeks really strong of the Ted Cruz for Senate campaign. And I've always loved Ted Cruz. I have not had any confidence at certain times over the last few years that he could win the primary because of the way it's always been ran in the past.
Sure.
And Donald Trump changed that. And if you go to Real Clear Politics and you look at that horse race over this primary season, there's only one candidate who has steadily risen, not jumped and dropped, steadily risen throughout this whole entire thing, and who has come up to second place, and that's Ted Cruz. And everybody that's Ted Cruz better be loving Donald Trump right now, because Donald Trump prepared the way for that to happen. And here's what I want to see. I'm going to get this up to Donald Trump. I want to see Donald Trump as vice president, because the vice president can go down to the Senate floor and speak. And I see turning the Senate hearings into a reality TV show with Donald Trump, the negotiator, which is what he is. What he is. I would love to see that for the next 8 years. You want to talk about whipping the house or whipping the hill?
You want to see him on the dais saying, "You're fired." That's what you
That's right. You got it. But anyways, Matt, I want to talk about you. I'm going to ask you my favorite elevator question.
No.
When you were a kid, did you want to be a doctor? Did you want to be a fireman? Or did you decide, I'm going to be a member of Congress today. I want to go into politics.
Yeah, well, it wasn't any of those, actually. My dad, certainly not a member of politics. My dad was a small practitioner lawyer. He worked in a two-lawyer office. And my dad had 9 children. And out of the 9 children, I always say 6 of them became lawyers, and the other 3 were successful. So, we grew up with this example of a guy that just helped people solve their problems and made a living at it. And that was really what drove me to go to law school. And I eventually joined my dad in practice. I was very privileged to have him actually in our office until he was 93 years old. Practicing law, so it was a wonderful thing. But my parents were always very political in the sense that they particularly my mother, she would talk to us all the time about our obligation to our fellow man, that we had to give back to society and pay attention to what was going on in our government. She was always involved, although they never ran for office or anything like that. But I often said, I grew up. I'm a boomer, right? So I grew up during the Vietnam War days, and I was a teenager in college, and I described our dinner table as not having dinner plates around the table, but lecterns, because every night my dad he liked to have all the kids sitting around, and we'd have these debates about, at the time was things about the Vietnam War and the Red Chinese threat and things of that nature. But I remember the Goldwater campaign, and actually you see much of they're dragging out Barry Goldwater to slap Donald Trump with them now. So I have always been very interested in politics, but didn't really get involved at all until 10 years ago, when one night I was throwing my shoes at Bill O'Reilly on the television, and my wife, who had seen my frustration many times, she said, "Well, why don't you get off the couch and do something?" And, what am I going to do? One guy, I'm a small country lawyer, what am I going to do? But I ended up running for township trustee, and 4 years later I'm in the state legislature, and here I'm running for Congress. Never expected to be here. And I can guarantee you that a bunch of Republicans in the state of Ohio wish I wasn't here. but we're pushing the conservative message all over Northeast Ohio, and for that matter, all over the state, and extremely well received by the voters who are fed up with the direction of our government and the cowardice, frankly, of the Republican Party leadership.
Well, and I'm glad you said fed up, because before you called in, Glenn and I when we started the show, we were discussing the tipping point. And I've been saying over the last 3 years, at some place in here, there's got to be the tipping point, and most likely history will bear out where that was. But there's a lot of things really going on that control that tipping point. One of our problems we've got is we have such a high, wonderful standard of living in this great country we've got. Even when we're in financial straits, and we are basically right now, jobs are nowhere in most places. You still got a good feeling from most people. People are still packing the mall and packing Walmart. But you've got these people that are getting these letters home, and Rodney Conover used this when he ran for Congress. I got that letter that said I really wasn't happy with my health insurance. And over the last couple of years especially, a lot of people have had to change their health insurance. A lot of people are at night sitting down with their children and not understanding what they're doing in math at school. It's very disconcerting to a lot of parents. I think, and I always said 7 years ago, I said, Obama, if he runs this all the way to the left, is going to pull the pendulum so far that when it lets go, it's going to knock the left back into the closet for 20 years. And I don't know that, Europe's on its way back. They've already been down this road and on its way back. I don't know that the American people, Matt, are you feeling that in Ohio? Are you feeling a real change from the past? And you've ran campaigns in the past of their passion, about their understanding. One more illustration, I'll hand it back to you to comment on that. We use this illustration on almost every show. When I was in California, I looked across the street and I saw cows and wild turkeys in a mountain and a river, in a meadow. In Texas, when we moved, now when I look out the window, I see a bunch of houses. We moved into a neighborhood. And I think about 100 of those houses, Matt, and if I walked into 100 of those houses and had a conversation about basic principles of life, I would say probably 80% of those people would agree with me. But if I walked into that same group of houses and asked them what Benghazi was, I would imagine most of them don't know. They'd say, well, I don't know, an Italian dessert. But I think that's changing. I think people are starting to watch the news. I think people are starting to pay attention to what's going on. We know there is a huge influx of people involved in this presidential primary season that we don't generally have. How is that translating? As you're out with all the people and you're having meetings and all kinds of stuff, how are you feeling that?
Well, I think you're certainly right that we have to some extent reached a tipping point, although it's a very gradual thing. That people, some people jump in and have been involved, since 2007, 2008. Others are just now getting involved. But when you look at the different issues that Obama has addressed and pushed, and you mentioned the health care issue, of course, being so prominent. What's happened, what I've seen happen is really a growth and understanding of the people. Because if you talk to those people in those 100 houses, and at least if you talk to those that are Republicans, and you say to them, well, what does the Republican Party stand for? And if they're not really engaged, they'll say, well, the Republican Party stands for small government. It stands for lower taxes. It stands for individual liberty. But those people are now learning that although those words are used by a lot of Republicans, that many of them actually will not stand up and fight for those values. And that's where I think you're really seeing a real edge develop on the conservative base. The conservative base is no longer willing to accept that they have to hold their nose and vote for the lesser of two issues. I've said this many times. I've been voting for the lesser of two issues in my lifetime for 40 years. And I would like to have an opportunity to vote for the good. And people, they are no longer willing to accept that somehow the political process is so rigged that they actually can't have the good, that is the conservative candidate. And your discussion about Trump and Cruz is a very insightful one because, Ronald Reagan, he's my hero, but he made a huge mistake when he handed the Republican Party back over to the Bush family as he left. And
exactly.
The Trump-Cruz or Cruz-Trump ticket offers an opportunity for 16 years of conservative control of the Republican Party. And that is probably the most important thing that can come out of the 2016 presidential election.
Exactly.
But
it brings us to another part of the discussion I wanted to have with you, because there's a second piece to this that is huge. 4 years ago, we were on Herman Cain's campaign, and when Herman Cain dropped out, everybody wanted to be on the Cain radio show. We had a show going, Cain Coast to Coast, and we interviewed Michelle Bachmann, we interviewed Rick Perry, we interviewed Rick Santorum. And my question to Rick Perry and Rick Santorum was this. I want to know what President Perry, I want to know what President Santorum is going to do with the bully pulpit and political correctness.
Yep.
Because if the president, if our leader will beat up political correctness and tear it away, then we, the people, can fight the battles. Because that's the tool that the left uses in order to win, and fighting things on a national level instead of a state level. But that's the big piece.
Well,
Donald Trump is into this and knocked a wall in it.
And that is so important because right now what we have is the Democrats, the Nancy Pelosi's and the Harry Reids of the world, they use their voice. Republican leadership repeats the lies that the Democrats tell. So, we can't actually have conservative government because we can't shut down the government because it'll hurt us in the election because it'll be all our fault. Well, why would the John McCains of the world or the Paul Ryan's of the world repeat those lies instead of actually articulating the conservative values, why they're important for our liberty and our prosperity, and put the blame where it should be in those instances, which is back on the White House and Barack Obama. So we have to have leadership that understands how to use the media, and who doesn't know better than Donald Trump, right? And has the backbone to step up to the microphone and not mince any words.
That's right. That is exactly right. And I think it really reverberates down to the other elections. I think it reverberates down to your election.
It does.
Stirring up the people right now. You know where they're at and what it's going to take to get them to vote for you. They're en masse saying the same thing, and the establishment has not been listening for a long, long time, and I think they're about ready to find out the results of not listening.
Well, that's right. There's a tremendous anti-incumbent, anti-Washington, anti-establishment fever, really, among the electorate. I actually, my campaign manager, maybe she'll yell at me when I tell you this, but I just over the weekend got a report on our I think of it as our little race in Northeast Ohio, right? And we've had a website up since June, and of course now we're going into high gear. We have a March 15th primary, but early voting starts February 15th. I just got a report about the number of volunteers who have signed up via our website in order to go door to door, make the phone calls, do all the meat and potatoes work that has to be done day to day in the campaign. And that number is 627 people. I can't tell you how that blew me away. 627 people. That is an army. In our last campaign, we had a bunch of volunteers, but frankly we didn't have the machinery in place to utilize them properly. But our opponent was hiring staffers out of the Columbus GOP in order to go door to door for him. We've got 600 people that are going to be walking in the snow to ask people to vote for Matt Lynch. And I'm very excited about the impact that those folks are having.
Well, and you know, that's such an important piece of a race, and we have proven it in the past. And I like to call it canterized. You've got the ability to canterize your primary incumbent. David Bratt spent a fraction of the money that Eric Cantor spent. But David Bratt had a team, he had an army of grassroots help, support behind him, and not only defeated Eric Cantor, slaughtered Eric Cantor. And it can be done. And we've been told season after season, well, you know, the establishment, because they've got all the money. I don't want to hear anything about any more money. And it's important, and while we're talking about money, we do want to tell you, though, to donate to Matt. It does take some. But I love this part, Matt, because I know what size of a campaign you're running. And I know that you're not running the same kind of money that a Boehner or a Cantor. You're not even close to the kind of money that an establishment candidate can have.
Right. Well, when we ran 2 years ago, we ran, and my opponents and his supporters spent about $2 million, whereas we spent about $200,000. So they outspent us about 10 to 1. But they just barely beat us.
Right. But what that tells me about Matt Lynch is that's how Matt Lynch can make his campaign money go a long ways, and that's the way Matt Lynch is going to treat my money when he gets to Washington,
D.C. That is exactly right. When people go to mattlynch.com and make a contribution, whether it's $5 or $500, it has a huge impact on our campaign. When we did the analysis of the cost per vote, we paid about $7 for our vote each. My opponent paid almost $70 per vote.
Exactly.
So there is no. I just can't tell you, Scott. When I'm out on the campaign trail and I talk to groups, if they hear my message, I get their vote. There's no two ways about it. It's just a matter of having enough money, not as much money as my opponent, but enough money to get that message out.
Exactly.
And they will, and they're flocking, frankly, to my campaign as volunteers, where they can also go to mattlynch.com and volunteer as well. But it also, in terms of just committing support for the campaign and to vote for Matt Lynch come February and March, just a couple of months. So we're very excited about it. We are extremely optimistic, but we don't want to be, Pollyannish here. It's still a tough race, and we're out doing it every day. We started in June, so we've had a long lead time here, and frankly, we have built up a lot of momentum, and I'm looking forward to announcing on March 15th, how we're going to be winning in November.
Exactly, and it is wonderful to feel that in a campaign, and you can feel momentum, folks. When you are in the grassroots, when you're on an actual campaign and things are running smooth and things are going in your direction, you can feel it. You can physically feel it. And it's important because, Matt, we need a lot of Matt Lynches.
Yes.
We don't need just one. We need a lot of them.
Right.
We need people that are going to go to Congress, that are going to go to the Senate, that are going to stand up for their principles and stand up for what they believe in and not be afraid to say what they need to say. And not go to play the political game of how high up the ladder can I get. And we know it can be done, and we're going to get you there. We're going to do everything we can. I want to remind our listeners, all of Matt's links are in the show page. You can go to mattlynch.com right from the show page. You can go to his Facebook and go to his Twitter, so on and so forth. So I want to remind everybody. I'll pass it back to you, Matt. What were you going to say?
Well, Scott, I so appreciate that. Well, I think that the point to be made here about the campaign is that the other side, they are so full of themselves. They believe they can do anything that they want. My opponent has a internet video up. It's on his website where he talks about one of the biggest problem being the debt and the deficit, right? And he laments the financial burden we're placing on our grandchildren. So he says that, right? That's the right thing to say. But then he goes and he votes for the omnibus bill just a couple weeks ago now. He increases our debt by over $100 billion. He's voted to increase the debt ceiling 6 times in just a short time in Congress. So it's this duplicity, this deception of the voter. You know, when he spent that $2 million a couple of years ago, his campaign did not say that he was a moderate to liberal Republican with an F rating from every conservative group in the nation. You can bet that. No. He's telling people, he's a strong conservative. But it's just not true. And his record shows it's not true. And that's our challenge, to show people the distinction between my record in the Ohio legislature, standing for conservative values like fighting Medicaid expansion, fighting Common Core, fighting an increasing budget, which ends up meaning really saying fighting John Kasich and all those issues. And then my opponent's record on the other side, supporting more spending, supporting raising the debt ceiling. And in fact, I'll invite people to go to mattlynch.com again, because we just put up a video last week, and I have to tell you the story, Scott. 2 weeks ago, my opponent, Dave Joyce, put on a teletown hall, where he calls people at their homes and they plug in and they can ask questions. And we happened to know about it, so we recorded the town hall. And in the midst of that town hall, he asked the participants to take a survey about whether or not they thought it was a good idea to bring Syrian refugees into the United States. Now, of course, I kind of laughed at that because I'm thinking, I don't really need to take a survey to know it's a bad idea. But nonetheless, that's what Dave Joyce does. And at the end of that town hall, he announces that, 86% of those that took the survey believe it's a bad idea to let Syrian refugees in the United States. It's dangerous, and we should put a stop to it, or at least put a temporary halt on it. So he announces this, and he announces that he's going to fight for that. But 3 days later, he votes for the omnibus bill that completely funds, it funds DACA, it doesn't build the wall, but it also funded all the Syrian refugee resettlement programs.
Right.
So here's a guy who is completely willing to mislead and misrepresent what he's going to do because he thinks that's what the voters want to hear. And that's frankly why they support me, because when they hear me speak, they know that I mean it, that I'm going to stand for those values, that I'm going to be joining Jim Jordan and the Freedom Caucus and pushing up the numbers in that voting block that are really going to have an impact. And frankly, at this point, and I haven't talked to Jim about this since what happened with the omnibus bill, but I have to believe that the Freedom Caucus is looking for a candidate to run as speaker other than Paul Ryan in the next election cycle. And when I'm there, you can bet I won't be voting for any establishment speaker in the U.S. Congress.
Well, and that's an important one as well. And Matt, down here in Texas, we've really done a really good job of taking over a good portion of the establishment, and things run so smoothly. Our congressmen, our state senators and state congressmen in Austin accomplished a lot for conservatives this year. Not everything on our Christmas list. We're still dealing with our schools and some other things, but they really did accomplish a lot. And when you take over, when you get rid of the mentality people who are there for themselves, and you replace that with people that are there for we the people. You want to be, this is a republic, like we started out talking about. Red Skelton, from the people to the leaders, not the leaders to the people. And we have there are a lot of Matt Lynches all over this country. I've been supporting some of them. My good friend Brent Graves down here in Texas running for State House, and Tim Spillman over in Kaufman County running for sheriff. All of the same caliber, Matt, running because you want to lead and you want to be a servant, a public servant. What are some of the other things you're facing up there? You guys are getting ready for, you got primaries, and of course Ohio is a big, important presidential state. So how's the presidential election going on up there in Ohio?
Well, that's a very interesting question, because of course the presidential race being the top of the ticket, it sort of drives everything else below. And as a conservative, I'm thrilled at what's happening at the top of the ticket on the Republican side at the moment, of course, with Cruz and Trump leading the pack. But it's a strange reality. I don't know if you followed very closely what we did in Ohio. I say what the governor and the legislature did to change the primary date in Ohio, so that we went from being a proportionate state to a winner-take-all state. That was done 6-8 months ago now, at least. And at the time, many folks thought that John Kasich was going to be certainly a contender in Ohio, and some say he still might be a contender because been a popular governor, even if he didn't deserve it, which we could talk about. But the point is that they instead of having 6 or 8 or 10 Republican candidates dividing up those Ohio delegates, they wanted to give all the delegates to the winner that they hoped would be John Kasich. So they moved the date from early March to March 15th. That changed Ohio to a winner-take-all state. But now they're looking at the race and thinking, well, gee whiz, maybe it's not going to work out quite as well for the establishment as they thought. Because certainly if Trump takes Ohio, he takes all the delegates. So that'll be very, very interesting to see how that shakes out. But because of some of that dynamic, many of the players have not been drawn to Ohio very much. They think, well, you can spend a lot of money. You can spend several $1 million in Ohio and come in second and get not one delegate. And maybe that's not a very attractive recipe for playing in Ohio very strong. So there hasn't been a great deal yet. Ben Carson had been doing some things. It was interesting to see that, the delegate process for Ohio wrapped up this past December, and some of those candidates did not really do themselves any good by failing to get the proper number of delegates. Now, Cruz and Trump, they did the work, and they've got delegates all across the state, but some of those farther down ticket, they don't even have delegates named to represent them, which is a dangerous thing when you've got the GOP in charge of those open seats. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in Ohio. And, of course, one thinks and assumes that after the early primaries go by that maybe some of these folks will drop out. But I think John Kasich is going to hang in here right through Ohio at the very least. If he can hang in and then take Ohio, I think he has a negotiating position maybe for a vice presidential spot. But I don't know who would take him other than Jeb Bush, frankly.
Exactly. Well, and I want to discuss another issue with you, one that is a huge Donald Trump issue. And one of the reasons I'm loving Donald Trump in this primary season is he's saying some things I've been trying to get people to say for a long time. And one of those things is the door. He talks about the door in the wall. He's going to build a great, big, beautiful wall. He's going to have a great, big, beautiful door where people can come through the door. And, we have the discussion on immigration all the time, and we talk about locking people out and sealing our borders, which is all good and important. But we are a nation of immigrants, and we do want them to walk through the door. In fact, the last word on the poem of the Statue of Liberty is the word door. And she has sat there, and she has watched immigrants over almost 250 years. Well, she hadn't been there that long, but her spot's been there, watching immigrants for almost 250 years come into our country. And Donald Trump gets up there and talks about the door. And we've got Glenn Atkinson on with us, Matt. Like I said, Glenn is one of our hosts on Saturdays, filling in for Rodney. But Glenn has been trying to come through the door for 9 years from Canada and has been in jail. He's still trying to just get a Texas driver's license. And he has hit so many snags trying to be a legal immigrant when we've got all kinds of illegal immigrants. And the Democratic Party, the party of Obama and Reid and Pelosi, want to tear down all the fences and just let anybody just wander in that wants in and just let them be a citizen. And no country's ever done that in history. It is insane, even the concept. But, you're up there in Ohio, Matt, where in the northern states sometimes don't have to deal with so much of the problems that we do down here on the border. But Glenn, I want to throw you in here real quick to say hi and have a little bit of kibitz with Matt. But I want to kind of head into the immigration. I think is going to be the word for 2012 in this general election.
Well, you're exactly right. And hello, Matt. It's good to have you with us here. It's incredible, to hear how you speak, Matt, because this is exactly what this country needs right now is people like you. And we need people, come on the radio shows and TV and whatever to voice that. Because, I think Scott's right that with all the stuff that's going on with Donald Trump is he's awakening a lot of people here, and the major issue is security of our country, which taps very heavily into immigration, ISIS and the refugees. They are all part of the same thing. And I've been trying for over 9 years and whatnot, and done everything right, and been thrown in jail a few times and stuff like that and whatever. But the thing is, I'm here. I'm compelled by God first and foremost. And with that, I'm here for we the people. I'm here to make sure that we can all make a difference, and each one person can make a difference, and that's the thing is a lot of people need to understand that. A lot of people think that one person can't make a difference. Well, we've seen that over and over and over again that one person can make a difference, but we need to unify, and that's what you're doing, Matt. And I really appreciate that. You're helping to unify this country from the grassroots, and that's where it needs to start. So with that, I thank you very much for that, and again, thank you for coming on the show and joining us with that.
Well, Glenn, I appreciate those kind words, and it certainly is true that, and I hear it all the time, that when you step out and articulate these kinds of issues, whether it's immigration or many others, it gives others permission, the courage, if you will, to step up and say, yeah, that's right, that's what I was thinking too. But right. Perhaps they were bullied by the political correct crowd. And that, again, is why Donald Trump's candidacy has been so important, because he just doesn't care about the political correctness. He addresses the issues directly, and the voters, the people in the United States, they sit up and say, yeah, that's right, that's important. And when it comes to immigration specifically, it's, this should be a Republican issue. This is the thing that just makes me pull my hair out, because illegal immigration is the primary source, the primary cause, if you will, of the depressed wages in this country that the Democrats often complain about. You hear this discussion about income inequality, but income inequality is in great part caused
Hello? Oop.
Okay, Matt, you there?
Yes, I'm here. I'm so sorry.
It's okay. I think it was something with Blog Talk. Glenn dropped as well. This is such a wonderful technology, Matt. I open up the studio on my computer. I call in. We've got a phone number. Anybody can call in from anywhere. And the technology works 99.9% of the time. But every once in a while there's a glitch. I as difficult as the technology can be, it's a great asset, as you know, in particularly a low budget campaign. So I'm happy to have it. And I'm not sure when you lost me there, but the point I was trying to make was that the illegal workers in this country affect those people on the lowest end of the economic scale. And those are people we should be making the case to, that the Republicans, if they would seal the border, if they would get control of the illegal and legal immigration process, that actually would help increase wages and increase the state of living for those people that need it the most. When I was, Glenn mentioned about how maybe we don't face this issue in Ohio too much. In fact, we have well over 100,000 illegal workers in the state of Ohio right now, and that translates, believe it or not, to almost $1 billion in education costs, in criminal justice costs, and in health costs for the state of Ohio, for Ohio taxpayers. So it's a huge and growing problem in Ohio.
And so when I submitted legislation in the Ohio House 2 years ago to deny certain benefits to illegals in this state, like maybe you shouldn't get a driver's license, and maybe you shouldn't get tuition discounted and subsidized by the Ohio taxpayer, that stuff should have gone right through.
Right.
But the reason it didn't was, again, because the Republican Party won't fight for those issues. And we've got to, and that's one reason, frankly, I'm running for Congress, because I could see how immigration was having a negative impact on Ohio, and the only way we're going to deal with that is at the federal level ultimately. And
exactly.
We've got to build that darn wall.
That's right. We do. And I'll tell you, while we've been doing this, I've been on in the background with my search and rescue team. We have been chasing all over the internet, satellite. I've had people out in all 50 states, and we have found Rodney Lee Conover. He's here with us, I do believe. Rodney, are you there?
I am here, man. I am
hello,
here.
Rodney.
How is everybody? You know, this is the second show I've done with Glenn, and what was that, a couple weeks ago we did another show?
Yeah.
That was a lot of fun. I was too crazy on that show, though. I don't think they're going to let me back on that one.
We found you on the road somewhere, it sounds like.
Yeah, I'm driving actually from the airport over to my mom's house in Florida. So I was on a plane during the start of the show, but I have been listening for the last 15 or so minutes, and you guys are doing great without me. Again, I don't think they're going to. I can't remember. I think it was Annie's show that Glenn and I were on. I don't think they're going to let me back on that show, Glenn. I went overboard. Don't you think?
Oh no, you did.
I listened to the replay of that show, and I made myself my own face turn red.
I actually, you try to keep a certain perspective on things, and my wife is very good at reminding me, that God is still on his throne, no matter how bad things seem to be. But frankly, we need to bring some passion to this battle. I'm kind of tired of the senator that stands up on the Senate floor and refers to his, good friend Harry Reid or some such nonsense. We have to recognize that the left in the Democratic Party has gone so hard left that they're no longer just another shade of American patriots. They're on another side. They're interested in, as we talk about, having no borders and really transforming this country, as Barack Obama said he would, and making it into something else. And that something else is something that I am not going to accept for my grandchildren.
I think that there's a lot of people that, and I'm not knocking Donald Trump. I love what Donald Trump is doing right now. I'm a Ted Cruz guy. However,
me too.
I think one of the big reasons that Donald Trump is resonating is what I call the Harry Truman effect, and that is he's just telling, he's giving them hell Harry. He's just telling it like it is. And if people come and they go, well this, well that, and he says, I don't care. I don't care anymore. I've never cared. I've loved country. I've made $1 billion. I'm huge. And you know what? If you don't like it, guess what? There's a ton of other people standing over there you can vote for, and that's what I like. And you know what? If he does not win because he's who he is, then that's it. And if he wins because of who he is, that's it too. And that's what I think that's what you're alluding to. That's what we all want to see. We all want to see that person. Who are you? Like the Who song. Who the heck are you? And then we'll vote for you. But, of course, they've mastered the art of making the most people satisfied that what they're saying is true by riding the fence, by never answering questions. And, as far as treating the Democrat Party like, for lack of a better phrase, like the enemy, I would tell you this. And Matt knows this better than any of us on this show. You got to get rid of the Republican Party before you can possibly hope to do battle with the Democrat Party. I mean, Matt,
that's true.
Is that true? I mean,
yes, that's true. I often say that the Democrats are our enemy, but the Republicans are our opposition. because it's the Republican Party leadership that is standing in the way of attacking the Democrats. That's the crazy part about this.
Think of the Democrats as the team with the ball. They have the ball and they're marching downfield. Well, we've got to stop them, right? But the problem is Republicans are blocking for them. And, that's, the Republicans aren't our direct enemy. They're not our direct, but they are standing in the way of defeat, of victory. They're standing right in the way. You're talking about illegal immigration and say, oh, well, why don't they do this? It will make wages rise. Why don't we do this? It'll make wages rise. Republicans have no interest in wages rising.
Yes,
they have no interest in that. And it's terrible, but it's true.
It's true, and it's evident because they are only motivated by their funders, the people writing their checks. So my opponent, for instance, in his last campaign, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, whose number one issue is cheap labor in this country with the legal and illegal immigration, they spent $325,000 to support his campaign. Now, do you think he's ever going to vote to build the wall when he's getting $300,000 from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce? It's never going to happen. And that's the kind of corruption that goes on in Washington, and frankly in Columbus as well, each and every day. Because the folks that are...
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, the folks that are there, they're not committed to these principles. They're just committed to their own political career or to the party.
Something that people don't realize, or maybe they do realize, and I'm just full of myself, but is that it's not, illegal wages is really not that big of a deal. It's paying illegal labor, really low wages and no benefits. It is bad, but it's not the worst part about illegal immigration, because the idea that lettuce would rot in the field if we got rid of all illegal immigrants is ridiculous. Of course, every job will get done by 91 million Americans who are not working right now.
That is exactly right. That is exactly right.
And the problem, to me, the biggest problem with illegal labor is not because most companies won't hire an illegal alien. They won't. The lion's share, the vast majority of companies, especially small business, they would never hire an illegal worker. But because of the inherent threat of illegal labor, because there is a guy out there that'll do it for $4 an hour or $6 an hour, it suppresses all wages.
That's right.
Whether you're battling directly with an illegal immigrant for a job or not, that employer still has an inherent, your wage is going to be suppressed, whether that employer has any intention of hiring an illegal worker or not. All wages come down, not just the illegal labor, but all wages. And as you stated just now, Republicans, Chamber of Commerce, blah, 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 hey, listen, when people give you $1 million or $100,000, or dare I say even $10,000 to run your campaign, the idea that they don't want something in return, folks, that's just stop thinking like that. There's no such thing as giving you $1 million and not wanting something in return. At the very, very, very least, pick up the phone when I call. You're first in line.
That's right. Yeah, they want access, but they love those campaign contributions. And you're right. It has an impact on them. And of course, when you have the leadership of the party, frankly, soliciting these kinds of contributions for their members, then the leadership in turn makes the member it makes it very clear to that member that you're getting this, but listen, you got to toe the line, and here's the line we want you to toe. And you are correct. The effect that those illegal wages have, those suppressed illegal wages have on the economy, it reverberates all through the economy. It's not just those on the lowest end. It's everyone else who's hiring legal workers but knows that they can keep their wages lower as a result. And
exactly. And there's another side to that, another aspect of that. And this is the way when I approach somebody that's Hispanic and discuss this issue. Ronald Reagan declared amnesty in the 80s, and because of that, we had a whole new influx of people that jumped over the fence illegally.
That's right.
And there's a bunch of them. Right. There's a bunch of them here right now. There's a lot of them here right now, and they basically came to have a better life. I understand that. But see, they don't get a better life because instead of coming through the door, they jumped over the fence. And they're not able to participate in the American dream. And there are plenty of very skilled illegal immigrants out there right now who are doing construction jobs and plumbing jobs and service industry jobs, and they are making a fraction of what they would be making if they were a citizen of the United States. If they had come through the door legally, if they had gone through the proper channels, and instead was a citizen of the United States instead of here legally, they'd be making instead of making $10, $12 an hour at something, they'd be making $35 to $40 at it.
That's right.
And then we have to bring into the conversation all of the people that have immigrated here legally already, the impact that it has on them. And it really comes down to it's not about the people, it's about a mentality. What kind of mentality do you have? Do you do things correctly, or do you just let people pile over the wall? You wouldn't do that in your own house. You wouldn't just, say, come on in the door, anybody that wants to. That doesn't mean you don't let people in. And so I'm going to pass it back to you, Rodney. Yeah. It's good to find you. You're out there in Florida. You any hurricanes or anything going on down there?
No, in fact, it's a sunny day, and I'm amazed because every time I come here, there's a hurricane, there's rain and whatnot.
Hey, I'm sitting in a snowstorm in Northeast Ohio, so I really don't want to hear about that.
Well, that's your choice. That's your choice, my friend.
Rodney, before I pass it back to you, I got to throw this out because I just like making Melissa Bohannon blush. But Melissa Bohannon is doing the social media for Matt. And doing an incredible job. And I told Matt when Melissa said Matt Lynch, I knew that name came with something. So Rodney is a good friend of Melissa's as well. And so Rodney, with that, I'm going to pass it to you to run it where you want.
Well, I just want to take a little bit of a turn here, and then I'm going to turn it back over to you, actually, Scotty. I may have to order coffee here at Starbucks, and I've been giving, as you know, I've been giving them a really hard time for the last, I'd say, 2 months about this Christmas thing where they took the ornaments and the tree off their Christmas cups, and they just think, well, if they're red, that's Christmassy enough. And I have a friendly feud with Starbucks, and I've never given this particular Starbucks a hard time. So I'm looking forward to this. I'm actually in line. Of course, Christmas is over, so I'm still going to ask for a Christmas cup. But
well, Rodney, I've never understood whether that red represented a Republican red or a communist red. What?
That's what I say. I say, hey, is this the Christmas cup? They go, yeah, it's red. I said, well, that could be. You could be giving me a communist cup. How would I know the difference?
Right. You need to ask them for the Republican cup.
Yeah. They here we go. They literally have resorted to taking Sharpies and writing "Merry Christmas" on my cups just to shut me up. But here we go. Let's hold on a second. Yeah, I'd like a large coffee, just flat, no room.
We do this often, Matt. The radio often takes us through the drive-through.
Awesome Christmas cup, and then I'd like
and it is always hilarious time.
With cream and sugar.
We gotta push a little forward and start having Rodney tell the people they're on a show and get their opinion.
He needs to.
And I don't want the communist cup. I want the Christmas cup. And if you could, I don't know, is there a Republican back there? If there is, I'd like the conservative Republican cup. I don't want the John Boehner. I want the Matt Lynch cup. Okay, nothing. Yeah. Now they're not even talking.
Yeah.
Anyway, I got a question.
They're calling security right now.
They've got their Sharpies out. They're writing a whole paragraph on mine. They got Matt Lynch. They got Melissa. They got Glenn. They got Glenn with his papers. They actually are writing out his what he needs to take down to immigration. That's how far they're going now.
Well, I think you could start a trend here. I think we should have everyone pull up and ask for a Matt Lynch coffee cup at Starbucks and see how much
that would be
success we can have.
I have a question though, and this is going to sound like one of my stupid, facetious comments, but it's not. I'm dead serious about this. What does the Democrat Party, be it Hillary, be it Obama, be it the NSA, and I'm not a conspiracy freak, but they have been spying on people. They've been spying on the press. They've been spying on certain members of Congress. They've been spying on everybody, probably.
Yeah.
Now, what do the Democrats, the Obama administration, and/or the Hillary, Clinton Foundation, what do they have on what's his name, the new Speaker? What do they have on Paul Ryan? They got something on this dude. I am telling you right now, I am not a conspiracy freak, but they have something on Paul Ryan. Wouldn't you agree?
This is a very interesting point because I have had more than one person say to me that they actually, the leadership of both parties, they like to have members and candidates that have a little dirt under their nails because they like to use it to manipulate and pressure that member if necessary. And so you have you can't dismiss that altogether, that there are not, there's not a copy of someone's FBI file with some inappropriate behavior sitting in the filing cabinet of the Speaker of the House, and maybe a file on every member. So
how can he go from what he was doing, which seemed to be very conservative? How can he go from what he was doing to being a full-blown Obama file? I mean, how does that happen unless there's something we don't know? We were going to elect this guy vice president of the United States, and ostensibly 8 years later he would run for president. That's how high up this dude was and how much we loved him at some point. And now, as far as I'm concerned, I'm going to put all my, whatever my weight is, behind primarying this guy, because it's a travesty what Paul Ryan has become. He's the Speaker of the House, for crying out loud. I thought we just got rid of a bad guy. Now we got a guy that is what? Worse? Just as bad? I can't tell.
Well, I think in many ways he's worse only because he has a long career theoretically ahead of him as Speaker of the House.
Exactly.
Boehner, we might have thought was at least in the waning years of his political career, which it turned out he was. But Paul Ryan expects to be around for a long time, not only as Speaker, but who knows what he thinks his next position might be, and it might very well involve a presidential race. So, I think Paul Ryan in that sense was much more dangerous. But I don't think we should be surprised. Look at where Paul Ryan came from. Paul Ryan, he was reared in Washington. He was, if you listen to Bill Bennett ever, you'll hear him talk about Paul Ryan in glowing terms. Well, he was always a staffer, an aide, congressional candidate. He was, that's where his roots are in the political machinery of the Republican Party. I don't think we could really expect that this guy was going to show up and suddenly become, an outsider to the party and oppose what the leadership wants. He's part of the leadership. He was raised by the leadership, and he's always going to be saluting the establishment, and that's why he's got to go. And listen, I think right now there should be people in the Freedom Caucus that are announcing that they are going to take on Paul Ryan as Speaker. They should be announcing it now because we don't want to be in a position next November after the elections of people saying, well, nobody's put their hat in the ring, and we just have to go with what we've got and so forth. No, we need to be talking about this now. And whether it's a Jim Jordan or Webster or a Louis Gohmert or, you pick them. But we've got to decide that we're not going to support Paul Ryan and that we have a candidate and get behind that candidate before it's too late.
Hey, is Melissa still on this call? Melissa, are you still there?
Oh, she's not on the call. She's listening.
Oh, she is. Okay, well,
she's tweeting about the call.
I was gonna ask Melissa specifically, but I'll ask any of you. Does anybody have information about the Green Bay Tea Party? Because somebody told me that they are actively seeking candidates to primary Paul Ryan, and it's a fairly big Tea Party.
I don't have any information about when is the primary for him.
Well, it's every 2 years, just like everybody, right?
Well, right, but I mean, when is the actual date? Because it's
I think it's June. I believe it's June.
Okay, so the deadline hasn't passed as of yet. We just passed the December deadline for getting into the primary, any of the primaries in Ohio. That's why I asked it. They're all different based on when their primary race is. But
Paul Ryan can still be primaried. I know that for a fact. But of course, the problem is he's got the giant.
Right.
You couldn't have a better position in terms of raising money, much like John Boehner. But I like the fact that they're going after him right away, if in fact they are. But that's a little birdie told me that. I didn't know if anybody else had heard that.
Well, he's not.
I think don't mess around. Go right after this guy. Right.
Yeah, he should be primaried, and we should do it sooner rather than later because he'll just get stronger. J.D. Winteregg, I don't know if that's a name you know, but he's the one that primaried Boehner last time. And I think you have to give him, frankly, quite a bit of credit for what happened to Boehner because he was out there sniping at Boehner. Now, he lost the primary last time, of course, and it's understandable, as you said, because Boehner had all the money. But J.D.'s been in this fight exposing Boehner for years, and, of course, now he's in the race for Boehner's seat against the Boehner pick in the race down there in Ohio. So I think we can't be afraid to take on these very established or very well-funded rhinos because, as we've talked about earlier, it's not about the money always. It's about the passion, it's about the volunteers, and it's about the principles that you bring to bear in the campaign. And that's how I'm going to win the race.
We've had JD on this show many times. JD's a good friend of ours, and we've got our full weight behind him. We've got Team Joe behind him. We've got all of our social media, Herman Cain, buddies behind JD, and we did last time, and he did really well, all things considered. But if anybody doesn't think they can get beat just because they're Speaker of the House or they've been there a while, whatever, or if they're in if they've been there for 16 years or whatever your deal is, if anybody thinks they can't be beat, I would invite you to go over to K Street in New York, go to Wall Street, where all the Wall Streeters hang out. I'd invite you to go to the Wall Street Institution where Eric Cantor is now working and knock on his door and say to Eric Cantor, do you believe that Paul Ryan can be primaried? And just check the look on his face. And that will tell you everything you need to know about can a guy be beat. Because
that would be Rodney. Let's get somebody to go videotape that.
Yeah,
that's a good one.
Who do we have down there near K Street? We'll have to find somebody.
Anyway, it's back to you, Scotty. I'm pulling in here. See you guys later.
Okay. Well, and so very true. And I'll tell you, I really do. I feel like this is going to be one of those years where we have got momentum on our side, because when it all comes down to it, at the end of in November, when everything really is going to be all finally settled, you are going to have certain people that are just always going to vote Republican. There's some people always going to vote Democrat. And in the middle, you've got some people that switch both sides. But the real key to it is getting lots and lots of people out to vote. Getting people out to vote that haven't voted. And they've got to get out. And I'll tell you, and give me 500 local candidates from state senator below, and I'll give you the governor. And it's very important that when we get the people out that are going to be the type of people that support you, Matt, those are the kinds of people we want out voting all over Ohio. Those are the kind of people we want voting out all over the country because they have confidence. We had Anita Andrews, a friend of Rodney's and mine, Anita Andrews, one of the most brilliant people I know when it comes to foundational politics. She talks about it. She explains that, issues, they're a big part of a primary season. They're a big part of a general election. But when it all comes down to it, people don't vote issues. They vote trust and they vote confidence.
Yes,
and
I agree.
We have got to regain the trust points on Capitol Hill. It is incredibly awful, Matt. I wouldn't want to be a congressman. I give you huge kudos. You couldn't get me to run for dog catcher, let alone run for Congress and be one of the body that is at like 22% popularity right now. But it's there because of the discussion we've been having over the last hour and a half. That's where we are at. And if we can change the mentality and the character and the fervor for doing what's right in our leadership, then our country will follow. But if we continue to go down this road of just reelecting these same hacks that nobody really notices what they're really doing because nobody really pays close enough attention.
Yeah. Well, I agree with all that, Scott, and that's why I invite folks to go to mattlynch.com to support my campaign. If they want to have a congressman that is more interested in promoting principle than their own political career or their own party, that's really where the rub is. You have to have people that are not dependent upon the party system. My opponent, he's been in elected office for 26 years. He's never had a job outside of elected office. And is it any surprise that when he gets to Congress, finally, he just does whatever he's asked to do, and frankly, then misleads the voters by spending millions of dollars saying that he's a conservative when in fact he's rated F by every major Republican or conservative organization in the country. And you're right, people are fed up with this kind of duplicity. They want someone who will do what he says. And that's why they love Donald Trump. Like him or not, you get the sense that when he says he's going to do such and such, he's going to build the wall, he is going to build the wall. And this is what people want. They just want to know what's true. And frankly, we deserve to give them what's true. We deserve to give them the truth in their candidate. And when they send Matt Lynch to Congress, they are getting the truth. They are getting someone who's going to stand up for our liberty, that's going to fight back. It's interesting. When I was interviewed by the local paper here, the Cleveland Plain Dealer, they didn't endorse me, of course, 2 years ago, but they referred to in the interview that it sounded like I wanted to go to Washington to fight. Well, of course, they were right. I am going to Washington to fight. I'm going to Washington to fight for the voters, to fight for constitutional principles, to fight for liberty and the Second Amendment, to fight against Common Core, to fight to prevent our debt from burdening our grandchildren, my 9 grandchildren, to the point where it will destroy their prosperity. Those are all battles that I'm anxious to fight and win for the people of the 14th District. And we can do it. We can absolutely do it. We're on the cusp of victory. We need a lot of prayer and any kind of support we can get at mattlynch.com.
You better believe it. And I want to remind everybody, take some time, go to the links, go to the Facebook page, share some stuff from Matt. Find one of his donation links. Ask your friends. Some of your friends donate. And these are important races. It's important that we do this in Ohio. There's a reason why I'm down here in Dallas, Texas, actively supporting Matt Lynch up in Ohio, besides Melissa Bohannon. But because it is candidates like you that we need to replace candidates like Royce.
Yeah,
your
Dave
opponent,
yes.
Joyce. We've got a Royce down here. I knew I was going to get those two confused. You're running against a guy who thinks that he's the master and the people are the slaves, instead of the people being the master and him being the slave. He's got that swapped, and that's the foundation of the problem right there. And it comes from pride, and it comes from selfishness, actually. What can I get out of this instead of what can I give out of this? And it's just so important, Matt. We've come to the end of the time. Rodney Lee Conover has already ditched us. I think he was afraid that I had found him long enough to hold him for a couple hours later and get something done. But he's ran from us. But Glenn Atkinson, you've been there, my buddy.
Thank
that
you,
I can always count on. We want to pop you in there for any final remarks, and then want to remind everybody, go to Matt's page, donate, go to Matt's Facebook, his Twitter, retweet, tweet, post, do whatever you can do to help get the word out. If you've got friends that are there in the 14th District of Ohio, call them and tell them that Matt is on the ballot and that Matt's going to make a difference. So, Glenn, I'll pass it to you, and then Matt will bring you back in for any closing remarks you've got.
Well, thank you very much, Scott. And once again, thank you again, Matt, for joining us here. You know, folks, we got to get out and support this guy. You know, he's the real deal. You know, him up there in Ohio with J.D. Winteregg, you know, we need to support these people because these are the people that are going to work for us, not to line their pockets and whatever have you. We have to excuse me, we have to make a living. Don't get me wrong, but the thing is they're doing it more from their heart, not from their pocketbook or whatever have you. So they're doing it for us, the grassroots people that are trying to make this country great again. And it's people like them, you know, like Matt Lynch, that you need to go to his website and please donate, because every penny spent will be spent for you. Make sure we gain this country back again. So that's my final thoughts, and don't let it stop there, folks. Bring this government down, you know, by bringing us up, we the people. And thank you again, Matt Lynch. We appreciate that.
Thanks, Glenn. And Matt, you're going to be on with us tomorrow night on American Soccer Radio. A little bit different style. We're kind of more round table there, a little bit more couch discussion. Looking forward to that. And, you know, the reason I bring up Melissa in the first place is because character and who you are is more important to me than issues. Now, I've looked at all the issues. You and I agree, I think probably on 95, 98% of everything. But that's never enough. And it's the other side of the equation. Is the reason why. You've got my full support. You've got my prayers. Doing everything I can. Whenever Melissa needs something, she knows she can pop in and say, Scott, please help me with this. We've got your back, my friends. Thank you for coming on, and I'm going to pass it to you for anything closing that you wanted to say.
Thank you so much, Scott. I so appreciate it, all the kind words and the support both from you and Glenn and Rodney as well. You know, I just encourage people to go to mattlynch.com. You know, there are three important things they can consider doing for my campaign and help me. One, of course, is supporting financial support, and that's always welcome. But they can also sign up and become part of that army of volunteers to even if it's just to put a sign in their front yard, and we can get that to them, and they can show their support in that way. But frankly, the most important thing they can do is to pray about this race and pray for our nation. We are in a very, very precarious place in this country. And if we don't get our spiritual side right, frankly, I don't think any of this stuff can be straightened out. My wife runs our prayer team. They can go to mattlynch.com and sign up and get on an email list of my wife, and she sends out prayer requests on a regular basis for people to participate in that. And it's of immense help to know we have people, all the things that need to be done in the campaign, but also people that are daily, you know, seeking the Lord's intercession for our country and for this race. And I think that's going to make all the difference in the world, and probably the most important thing people can do for me.
Well, I agree 100%, and you got that right, and that's a whole other discussion we could have. Maybe we'll discuss a little bit of that Tuesday. I put a lot of the blame on our churches. We have failed this country. And
that is a big discussion. You're right. You're exactly right.
Only a third of the Christians that participate on Sunday morning are voting. And we will be the first. We will be the first to take the brutal impact of if the left actually wants to get where they want to get. So thank you, Matt, so much. Looking forward to talking to you again tomorrow night. Looking forward to congratulating you personally on a win, because I do believe we're going to get there. Eric Cantor proved it could be done. J.D. Winteregg proven it can be done. J.D. Winteregg's got an incredible path right now to a win. And that's what we need. We need upsets because they do make a difference. So I want to thank everybody for listening.
I look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you. I look forward to it, too. And Melissa, love you. Glad to give you the shout-outs. One of my closest, dearest friends, somebody who I have immense respect for. We've got all kinds of things coming up on Contending for Truth Radio. We have, of course, Ladies Bible Class. We'll continue. We are beginning the story of King Saul. On Fridays, we've got Ladies Bible Class. Saturday Symposium didn't even stop through the holidays. It just kept going. Dan Wilson down in Florida, where Rodney's at today. And then, of course, Glenn Atkinson, and as well, Gary Rimmer from North Dakota. North Dakota or South Dakota? I always forget which Dakota he's in. I want to remind everybody for that. Saturdays, American Sovereignty, like we said, is back on Tuesdays. And we are going to be adding a show this coming up Sunday. We are going to be doing a Bible question and answer show. You've got a question, we're going to go straight to the Bible to find the answer. And going to be Pat Morris is going to be heading that up. And we are going to have a panel, and you'll be able to call in with your questions, or Twitter, or Facebook, or email, and have your answers on the air. So looking forward to that coming up this next Sunday. Going to be a great time as well. So I want to thank everybody, remind everybody to go to the links. They're all there on the page, whether you're listening now or are many people that listen in archive. The links are there. Please go and give Matt whatever kind of support you can give. Some people can give money. That is wonderful. Some people can give time. If you can give time, please do so. And do some of the things. Matt's got a great website set up by people that I know and love, and get in there and just absolutely utilize that website. It will take you to all the social media you need and give you some tools that can help you help Matt. And that's mattlynch.com. So go there. Thank you very much, Glenn. Love you, my friend. You're always there in a pinch. You have been doing some great things. Actually, we've got 12 minutes left still. Did I close out early, Glenn?
Yeah, we got a few minutes left there.
We got a few minutes left. Let's use a couple of them, because I wanted to get to this. You have been just all over the place. Now, when you don't forget the little people now. You have really had, for the last 3 months, you've had some really, really exciting things happen. And one of them being you're on the radio all the time now. And tell us about what you're doing over there with Dan and Annie and that whole group. We want to remember. See, it's been Pundit Press for so long. I told Dan, don't change the name. Now I can't remember where we're broadcast at. But Dan Butcher, what used to be Pundit Press, and I'm sure that'll take you there. Great guy. A lot of things going on. He rebroadcasts a lot of our shows. And Annie Ublis, a very, very good friend of mine who I love dearly, is like 17 on the top 100 conservative radio hosts. Has an incredible show. So tell us about what you've been doing, Glenn.
Well, you're exactly right. Yeah, I've been busy, and it's welcomed. And basically, you yourself started all this, really. When it comes to being as a co-host or helping out, basically I just, was on your show explaining my situation here, and you, I'm grateful that you asked me to join, on Tuesday nights once in a while with you guys on and Contending for Truth with, and then on Saturdays, of course, now co-hosting with Dan Wilson. And through all that, I've had Annie Ublis. She's had me on her show with my story and co-hosting. Because I call in every Tuesday and Friday for her, and just like I have for you on Tuesday and Saturdays and whatnot. So just being available has made this available to me, and it's just kind of that's the great thing about what we're doing here is, we're just an individual that wants to help and wants to do something, and we don't have the money behind it. We have the heart behind it, and this is what I've been able to accomplish with just by keeping it real and trying to get my story out and trying to get the story of America out there is helping. And then Dan Butcher, he's been on kind of helping out with Annie too. I guess he was a co-host with her before too, but he himself, I guess, heard me, speaking on there, and then we've kind of co-hosted together. And he's listened to some of our shows with you and Dan Wilson, Jennifer Montrose, and that. So he's asked me about a month ago to come on to his show, which is he's in Texas himself, up in the Panhandle, and he does a show Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays and Fridays, not Wednesdays, and we do that for an hour or more. From 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, and so he's asked me to join him as a co-host on his show, and we're getting the Texas movement out there and all across America with the grassroots stuff going and that. So it's been I'm just so blessed by everyone's pitching in to help me, because I everyone's saying that I'm doing the right thing here as being from Canada. I'm not even an American as far as in law, in writing or whatever have you, by documents. But God sees our heart, and He sees what we're doing, and we're we got him in our hearts first. So with that, I again thank you and both Dan's Butcher and Wilson and Jennifer Montrose and Gary Rumor, as you've said, he's joined us the last few weeks as a co-host on Saturday Symposium. So it's very, very, and Annie about Ublis, all these people. It's just a blessing to be part of at any level, as far as use me, whatever you want. I'm here for America, and I'm here for God first and foremost. So again, thank you so much, Scott.
Well, and it has been a good year. It really has, and we got to know each other at the beginning of the year, and we've had some good times, very good times.
Yeah.
Loving every minute of it, and we're fighting this fight, and I'm a firm believer that we can win this. I really think we can make a great American pullback one more time to conservative values. We know that the world is always going to be pulled in the direction of government control. That is the nature of man. That has been the history of this world, that government pulls and tries to gain more and more and more control. And when it does, the people end up basically in slavery. That's why this great country works, because we were made a republic. The power was given to the people. We were given a constitution that doesn't guarantee our rights. Our rights are guaranteed by God. What it does is it limits government. That Constitution was designed to hold back government from having the ability of doing what governments have always done in the past. And that's why it's worked, and that's why we've got the prosperity. Like we talked about, Glenn, at the beginning of the show, our malls and our Walmarts, the parking lots are full. Even under the dire straits that our economy's in right now, even under the incredible debt that we're under, under the incredible amount of people that are not working and being productive in society. Every problem, we could get into some discussion with Rich Lowry, economist, on some of the problems with our economy. All these things, and we're still living the great American dream, and we are still prosperous and living a good standard of living next to the rest of the world. There are still people in this world that walk a half a mile carrying a bucket of water just for their daily needs. And we're so fortunate and we're so blessed. We just have to make some people realize the important things. And that's what we do. That's why we're here. Glenn, you will be back on Saturday Symposium, going very, very well. Enjoying the fact that I don't have to worry about that too much on Saturdays. I needed my Saturdays back. I needed one day when I didn't have to worry about everything when I've got everybody home. So it's been a great watching you guys run with that. The three of you, Gary, and Dan, having a great time. And with that, we're going to use our Keep On Keeping On as our closing out. My good friend, D-Rock Country. Beautiful words. My favorite, all-time favorite song. Because this is what it's all about. Matt Lynch, his campaign is going to keep on keeping on until the end. They're going to keep fighting. And that's the kind of mentality they've got. I know that because I know some people that are closely involved with Matt. And it's the kind of mentality they've got. It's the mentality here at Contending for Truth Radio. You keep on keeping on because whatever doesn't kill you, it just makes you stronger.
That just go wrong, make you wanna holler and shout and throw your hands up in the air, wondering what it's all about. And you think that things can't get much worse in a second. Oh, everything just goes south. Keep on keeping on. Whatever don't kill you makes you strong. Don't you worry, it won't be long. Darkness comes before the dawn. I'll tell you one day at a time. With God's grace, you're gonna be fine. You got what it takes down inside. Road ain't alone. Stand in your way. They're always saying what you cannot do. Don't stop chasing your dreams and working hard to make them come true. And if it ever gets too tough, just remember you'll fail. Whatever don't kill you makes you strong. Don't you worry, it won't be long. Darkness comes before the dawn. Take it one day at a time. With God's grace, you're gonna be fine. You got what it takes down inside. The road ain't alone. Keep on keeping on. Keeping on, whatever don't kill you makes you strong. Don't you worry, it won't be long. Darkness comes before the dawn. I'll take you one day at a time. With God's grace, you're gonna be fine. You got what it takes down inside. The road ain't long. Keep on. The road ain't long. Keep on keeping on.
Geico presents sharing versus oversharing. Yesterday, Cliff Sora shared a top 10 list of hot fusion restaurants, a vegan gluten-free mashup recipe, and a podcast featuring organic food trends. Oh, TMI, too much internet information. That's oversharing. Cliff, Geico has something worth sharing with your friends. Like how on Geico.com you could save hundreds on your car insurance, update your policy, and report a claim. Gluten-free info that's easy to swallow. Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.